Calling to order the January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Beacon City School District Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vicki, can you call the roll? Here. Delayed.
Here.
Here. Excused.
Here.
Here.
Excused. Here. Matt, can you point out the fire exits?
Yes, exits are in the back of the LGI.
Great. We are going to stand again for a moment of silence for Candace Betanvedya, who was a teaching assistant for the school district for 43 years, and she recently passed away. Okay. We will start with public comment. Does anybody have public comment they would like to make? I don't think anybody signed up. All right, seeing none. We will go ahead and start with tonight's workshop, which is a presentation from Rombout Middle School. Principal Soltish.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. Look forward to being here. I was actually up in High Park reffing a basketball game, and so the timing was just right to get back down here for the board meeting. So some of the highlights that we're going to go through tonight is just introductions, academics, data overview, some things going on outside the classroom, community engagement, a little update on some of the capital project improvements we had, and then just looking forward. Obviously, I'm Brian Zoltish, the building principal, but my two assistants are both here this evening, Mrs. Pacino and Mr. Carafano. They do an excellent job every day, so I thank them for their work. Before I move to my next slide, I'd like to thank the superintendent for something that he's been doing. The star student portion of his newsletter, we recently had the honor of having a student that we got to nominate for that, Troy Birch at Rombout Middle School. Troy is an amazing kid, and I will tell you it means the world to him that he got that in the newsletter. He told us today he feels like a celebrity. So just to see his excitement for that recognition is really heartwarming and amazing. He's a great kid at our school, and I just want you to realize that having that award, that means everything to him. So thank you very much for doing that.
That's great.
If you ever get a chance to come to Rombout, ask to meet Troy. He will be happy to meet you. So academics at Rombout, just kind of giving some updates. So in 8th grade, we do Regents Algebra. We currently have 63 students enrolled in Regents Algebra out of 209 in 8th grade. We have the Living Environments Regents class. There's 70 students in that class out of 209. We do 3 sections of both of those courses. So there's 3 sections of Algebra Regents, 3 sections of LER Regents, and the LER Regents are also paired up with a lab every other day. We also have 8th grade credit-bearing advanced art. That class does take place in the morning before school starts, but the students are able to use the high school transportation to get in. We do 7th grade advanced math. In terms of our academic intervention services, we have that in grades 6 through 8 for AIS math and literacy. In math, we currently have 116 students enrolled in that, and in literacy, 106 students are taking advantage of that. We do band and chorus grades 6 through 8. The reason I point that out is the music requirements at middle school do not go 6 through 8, but we do continue our band and chorus programs in 8th grade as opposed to putting a gap in the students' ability to either be part of the band or the chorus. So those students are allowed to continue with those electives. And we are currently still offering both Italian and Spanish in grades 7 and 8. And I hope you enjoy the picture. That's from our living environment class. But that is definitely hands-on learning right there. They're doing a dissection. The kids were really, really excited to do that one.
Thanks, Brian.
You know, we gave that a lot of thought. I just want everybody to know we thought about that a lot before we put that in there, and we still put it in. So I don't know what that says for us. Some of the data in terms of New York State testing, I thought it was important to talk about participation rates. It's certainly an area that I think we need to improve in order for us to be able to look at data accurately. So just to give you an idea, over the last 2 years in ELA in 22-23, we had 376 students test out of 615, which was a participation rate of 61.1%. Last year, we had 382 out of 583, which was a participation rate of 65.5%. So it did increase. We are certainly looking for those rates to go way up, but for a number of years now, students opting out of or not taking the state test has become the common thing. It was more prevalent a few years ago, and our hopes are that we can really encourage our students to get back to taking those assessments so that our teachers can use that data to really guide their instruction and see how they're progressing.
Just to jump in on that real quick, Saggy and I are going to support Roundabout with that effort as well. The participation rates at the elementary school have improved quite a bit with the testing. Roundabout's sort of the last place that we're working on. So we're going to do some communication support with Roundabout so it's seen as like a district thing, not just a school thing. And because it's, you know, for all the sort of obvious reasons. The one thing we do want to make clear to folks, I think the original cause for opt-outs was that the teacher evaluation system years ago was tied to student tests. That is, you know, governor signed a law. Those things have been decoupled now. They do not, you know, they do not influence each other. So we're going to kind of use that as part of our messaging in terms of, you know, and some other strategies to up that rate. So I'm just saying that you guys will be heavily involved in it, but we're going to support that too.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's an area that we really feel strongly we'd like to see increase, and hopefully this year and moving forward, those rates will continue to climb. So in math, just to run through those numbers, 2022 and 2023, we had 384 tests out of 615, so that was 62.4%. And in 23-24, this past year, 382 out of 583, that was a 65.5%. So that was a 3.1% increase. The Regent students in algebra are not counted against us in those numbers. So a lot of those students do not take the state test because they're taking the algebra Regents. So sometimes if you are not looking at the right numbers on like the state report card, you might see more students in 8th grade not testing in math when it happens to be that a number of them are just taking the Regents, and so they are exempt from the state test. In terms of iReady, which is the diagnostic we use at Roundabout as well as in the elementary schools, looking at our fall 23 to spring 24 in ELA, we don't have huge changes, but our at-risk Tier 3 students went from 41% to 39%, which means Tier 3 decreased by 2%. Our Tier 1 increased from 39% to 40%. Within the iReady information, we have targeted vocabulary as one of the areas that we'll be focusing on within the building to work with our staff to try to improve those scores. In terms of math, fall 2023 to spring 2024, our at-risk or students who were in Tier 3 decreased by 6%. Our Tier 2 students decreased by 3%. And Tier 1 increased by 9%. So Tier 1 is the at-grade level and above. So that increased by 9% in math, which we were very pleased with. And so certainly we're going to continue to work with ELA. Tends to be that the reading of the ELA passages in iReady isn't always capture their attention. So we're going to work with our students to try to make sure that they are progressing in that. In terms of outside the classroom, I just want to highlight some of the things that we do. Sixth grade, last year was the first year we went to Boundless Adventures. It's a zip line, high ropes, elements course. That was our sixth grade class trip. They had a blast on that trip. The picture to our left there is a picture of the students up in the high elements of the trees. So they go there. There are 4 different levels that they can do different activities at. It's not all zip lines. It's team building. The kids came back from that trip. The staff came back from that trip excited about what they did. They enjoyed it. It was something we haven't done in the past, and just the reviews we got on it were great. So we're going to do that again this year with our 6th grade students. That date is already set. 7th grade students have the overnight trip to Boston. That trip is featured on the far right with 2 of our chaperones with some of the students. So that trip will be going May 16th and 17th, and that's the one night in Boston. Our 8th grade DC trip, which is in the middle there, we are going April 30th, May 1st, and 2nd. So that's our 2-night overnight trip, 3 days. 8th grade chorus did a performance this year at Radio City. So that was a really neat opportunity that Mr. Carafano had worked on with Mr. Cunningham to make arrangements to have that happen. So that was a really nice day for those students and their families to put us on that stage. Our Italian classes will be going to New York City again this year. The RMS PE department has already done the hiking, swimming trips, and also the bowling trips to Spins. 7th and 8th grade will have Trills and Thrills for their performance and trip with the band. We will also be looking for an additional trip for 7th grade. I just don't have it planned out yet. So when you look at 7th and 8th grade, we consider the Boston trip, which is an overnight trip, and the DC trip, an overnight trip. Those aren't something that everyone's going to go on for different reasons. So we like to have something that we do during the school day that is an inclusive, everybody goes on those trips. So 7th grade, we're still looking at what we're going to do. With the 8th grade, they do go to Lake Compounce at the end of the school year. So that's kind of their one that everyone will go to. And then we do tend to fill in some other things as we go throughout the year, depending on what's happening. Does anybody have any questions about any of the trips while we're on this slide?
I know last year when we approved the 7th grade trip last year,
Yes.
one of the concerns I had was having back-to-back years of money trips, and I wondered how was the numbers of students that went, like, in 7th, and 8th, like last year, and I know you don't know now, or maybe you do, like, how's the, percentages of kids going?
We're actually in a pretty good spot right now. We're up over 100 enrolled on both trips, and we typically take somewhere between 115 and 130 students. We haven't gone through all our scholarship students yet, and that's mainly because the rep I work with through the company has been off for the last several weeks. He's coming back in about a week and a half. Once he's back, I will work with him for our scholarship students to get them enrolled. So if they're like going full scholarship, they can't just enroll because the company requires the payment. But we will work through paper applications with families so that we can take care of the costs from our scholarship funds.
So if, I don't know the exact numbers, if you've got 107th and 108th,
Yeah,
about going, or
approximately,
115? So that means, is that meaning like 75 each grade are not going? Is that, or what's?
Yeah, I mean, roughly, because we're at 209 right now in 8th grade.
Okay.
In 7th, we're a little under 200.
And do we know, are they not going just because they don't want to go overnight because they're too young, or that, is it money? Do we have any thoughts of why?
The faculty meeting, we always tell the teachers, and that we emphasize this at the last one, if they hear kids talking about the trip and they hear, find out if anybody has a money concern, we want them to get them to us. We do get emails. We have the scholarship forms. Some kids, it is just going overnight. Some parents aren't comfortable with the kids, going down to D.C. or going over to Boston because it's a different experience for them. So we do get a fair amount of that. I will say we're yet to know of anyone that doesn't go because of cost that we were aware of. I'm sure those people are out there that may not ask, but anyone who's asked or needed assistance to this point in our time doing the trips, we've been able to accommodate those requests and make sure that they go on the trip.
Great. I think they're great experiences.
Oh,
I just worry about those that get caught in the, not being able to go.
The last few years, Anne Marie in the business office has worked with Brian and Rombout to increase the scholarship amounts with how we do the chaperones like that. I think a lot of times these trips, the chaperone fee is kind of covered by the company, but we try to cover the cost of the chaperone. So then the scholarship fund has really grown quite a bit the last few years because this is always a concern with me. It's like you said, it's like 2 years in a row of, especially the DC one is pretty high. So I think we'll every year keep looking for ways to increase that scholarship amount or like the financial assistance amount. But just like Brian said, I've had parents say to me directly, I'm not sending my kid, I don't want my kid to be gone for that amount of, so there's some of that too. But this is something that we'll always work on with this is, because it is a great experience.
Yeah. I mean, we only do staff for chaperones, so I think that's, could deter sometimes as well, but to try to take a lot of chaperones would be, it's tough for those trips. I will tell you last year, just for the DC trip, we did approximately $15,000 in scholarship money to students to take them on the trip. So it was really nice. The Roundhouse every year has been extremely generous with donations to take kids on the trip as well as staff. And the elementary schools, if anybody's watching, the Ride to School fire truck raffle will be coming to the elementary schools soon. That's our big fundraiser that we use to try to put money into the scholarship fund as well. So those will be going home through the elementary schools. We usually do it at the beginning of the year. We got a late jump this year, but now is a good time for it. Any other questions just while we're on this area? Okay. Some other things in terms of school-wide assemblies. We had the IROC 2 Digital Safety Awareness that was geared towards digital citizenship. When we were doing the cell phones at the beginning of the year, we thought it was important to have somebody come in and speak to the students. They also did a parent night, so that was well received by the students. In the same week, we brought in speed painter Tom Verano. I will tell you, it's one of the best assemblies I've ever had. I thought he was an amazing speaker, a talented artist, captured the students. So he would paint a portrait in front of the student's speed painter. Maybe he's painting for 3 to 4 minutes, maybe. And then he flips it over, and you can see whether it's Martin Luther King Jr., Statue of Liberty. He did a number of different things. We had middle school and elementary. For our school, it was Statue of Liberty, Martin Luther King Jr., Kobe Bryant, and Malala Yousafzai. The students loved it. He gave a speech about each of the things he painted, hitting on character traits. I don't think there was a topic he didn't cover in his assembly. He covered everything. If any of you work in a school, he is well worth bringing to your district. I just thought he was amazing, and I look forward to working with him again in the future to bring him back to our students. Our sixth graders did have the marionette show this year. We bring in Tanglewood marionettes every year, and it lines up with the Lightning Thief that they read in ELA. And so they see Perseus and Medusa. So that happened already this year, about 2 weeks ago, up at the high school. Grades 7 and 8 got invited by Beacon players in the high school to come up for a dress rehearsal performance of Man of La Mancha. That was really, really nice of them to put on for our students. Very gracious of the high school to have us up here. The high school has invited us again. Our 8th graders are going to go up for Paranda Navidena. Did I say that right, Mr. Dwyer? Yeah? All right. So the foreign language department is doing that in celebration of Three Kings Day. And so they invited our 8th grade students to come up and be part of that performance. So it's really nice that there's a few things that they've had up here that they've extended to our students at Rombout to come across the street and take advantage of. Outside of the classroom, just trying to go through some of our club offerings. If you're looking at the pictures, got a slow motion pickleball action on the bottom there. Mr. Joyce is our advisor for that. And above that is our esports team, which brought home multiple championship trophies at esports with Mr. Ginjulis in the background. The students are really, really proud of that. But to go through some of our other club offerings, we have art club, board game club, chess club, coding club, drama club, Dungeons and Dragon Club, esports, environmental club, foreign language club, home and careers club, intramurals, jazz band, National Junior Honor Society, pep band, pickleball club, student council, technology and engineering club, wind ensemble, yearbook club, and our 8th grade class advisorship. So there are a lot of opportunities for students to participate in different things at the middle school. In terms of modified athletics, we have our cheerleading team there at one of our recent games. But we have boys and girls soccer, football, cheerleading, volleyball, boys and girls cross country, developmental girls swimming and tennis, boys and girls basketball, wrestling, developmental boys swimming, and boys and girls bowling, softball, baseball, girls lacrosse, boys and girls spring track, boys and girls crew, and developmental boys and girls golf and boys tennis, just to name what we're currently doing at the middle school level. Not all in the winter season, but from spring through, from fall through spring.
How many of the developmental sports are unable to take all the students that want to join?
I don't know of any developmental sports that
Or
turn,
modified?
just modified sports
All
in
the
general.
sports that we have.
A few of the teams, I think boys soccer may have had to turn back a few people possibly this year. Basketball, those might, and volleyball, those are probably the three that might have some cuts. Most of the other modified or developmental are going to be inclusive of anybody that's looking to participate. The volleyball does get a lot of student interest, as well as basketball and soccer. But I would say there's always something every season that a student who's interested in participating could then join.
I think the wrestling team this year is bigger than it's ever been or something.
Yeah, the wrestling
and it's a
team.
no cut.
Yeah, typically, so we sometimes have to order more uniforms and get more things, but wrestling isn't turning anybody away, and they've got big numbers this year.
Cross
I
country's
think
been really big.
intramurals then maybe, I think one of the things about the teams that do cut is that there's a lot of often there's families that can afford to do outside sports or training or I know for volleyball that
Yeah.
gym in Peekskill is really expensive and it's
Yeah.
a long drive. And so it's great that there's options, but if a kid's interested, I think of 7th and 8th is when you learn to play a sport.
Right.
I just remember nobody got cut in middle school and then you try out for JV or, some schools have freshman teams. I know that's a bigger investment, but I just think if we can think about intramurals or instruction or something, to think about the budget so kids can learn to play and they don't have to go to an outside
Right.
source for that.
Absolutely. And I would say that I don't know for a fact that we had cuts this year in volleyball. I would have to check.
I've seen it in the past, but I
Yeah.
haven't seen it this year. Usually
Right.
you see
Yeah.
the sad Facebook post. but,
Yes, yes.
and maybe wasn't paying attention or I didn't see them this year. But just
Yeah.
generally, it's not like a gotcha thing, just something to think about.
No, not a problem at all. And, we do offer the intramurals in the morning before school starts.
For all the sports?
Not for everything. And typically, Mrs. Tobin, who does the intramurals, will gear it around what the kids are interested in doing. So it could be, they definitely do volleyball. They definitely do basketball. So there's different options that they can participate with. And actually, they're currently doing volleyball in PE class. So in terms of the arts outside the classroom, that is a picture from Radio City of our 8th grade chorus students. So it was only the 8th grade portion of the chorus that went, but we actually got an email sent to us that had the performance. They did an outstanding job in front of that big audience, but just a really special day for the students and their families to go down to the city and partake in that. So things that we do have, and some of this is repetitive, but we have the band and chorus running through 6th through 8. General music in 6th and 7th grade, advanced art in grade 8, jazz band club, the wind ensemble, and the pep band, which plays at the home football games, which is really a neat little twist. And it starts to get some of them ready for when they go up to the high school to continue that progression. Communication to the community. So we have the biweekly Monday message still, social media presence on Instagram, district website, Blackboard, robo emails, robo texts. In terms of involvement in the community, we did the RMS Honors Our Veterans again this year. We were able to donate $800 to the Beacon VFW. We have open house, report card conferences. Last year we did we call it new 6th grade orientation, but it was just new in the sense of how we ran it. So this past school year, we did an orientation for parents in the springtime, and we kind of turned it into like breakout sessions. So the way we did it was parents came in, we just did a quick introduction in the cafeteria, and then we had 4 different breakouts. So parents could go to a session on Power School, Google Classroom, because the transition from elementary to middle school, that Power School and Google Classroom is a big deal because now they've got all these different teachers that their students have. And to hear about it a little bit before they actually start the school year just makes them aware of what's coming, and they're getting that information from one of our teachers. So we had a session for Power School, Google Classroom. We had a session for special education, 504, so that, again, parents coming from elementary schools with questions could go to a room where we have people that specialize in that area to communicate with them, just to put them at ease, to answer some of the questions that they have that they may not want to ask in front of 150 people in the cafeteria. I stayed in the cafeteria with guidance, and we did a question and answer. I'm not going to tell you how many people after the introduction stayed for the question and answer for the first session. It was two, I think. Two people stayed? 2. We had it was nice. We had a nice time. We had our last session packed, but they all went out. And then we did building tours. Building tours are something we do with the incoming 5th graders every year. So this year we did it with their parents and their guardians. And the thought behind that was to let them see the building, to let them understand where things are so that when they're here in the summer, before the school year starts with their child, 1, they have a better idea where things are, and 2, it gives them a sense of just how big the building is and where everything is in the building. And it went really, really well. We got a lot of positive feedback, and we plan to do that same layout for a parent evening this year for our orientation with our incoming parents. We have the Use Again donation bins outside, student council. The BCSD Art Show is located at Roundabout Middle School. Our PE department ran a turkey bowl right before Thanksgiving, and they will be also doing their March Madness tournament in the springtime. In terms of engagement with the community, we are partnering with Compass Arts to assist with our drama club. So we are going to be running a drama club. Compass Arts is going to be the group that's working with our students in a club atmosphere to put that on. We have National Junior Honor Society is going to be doing Parents Night Out again. We have our PTO. We did the IROC 2 Parent Night, so that assembly that we did for the students was available for parents that same evening. We had a small turnout, but a nice turnout, and the parents were very grateful who went to that we had that for them. We will be bringing people to work with the BCSD Film Festival again, and our incoming sixth graders will get their orientation as well. So the students will come to us during the school day, and then we will have our parent night, and we will also do our summer orientation. So there's really three different things that we do with that. In terms of the capital project improvements, Roundabout really benefited from the last capital project, so just want to say thank you and also kind of say, hey, they're happy to be in these rooms. It's exciting to have updated things. So the picture to the left is one of our science classrooms. You'll see like the fancy extension cords hanging from the ceiling, all the cabinetry, the new floors. So it's just really nice to be in a brand new room with all new ceiling tiles and bright lights. So to the left, we have one of the science rooms. To the right is one of our art classrooms. Again, it's really a great thing for the students to have up. Those rooms were really in desperate need of a facelift. So thank you very much for allowing that to come to Roundabout. Throughout the whole building, our hallway ceilings and lighting was all replaced. Huge difference just walking around the building in the hallways. And, you know, obviously there were other infrastructure improvements that took place that aren't quite as exciting as looking at new classrooms. But there was a lot of wiring done in the ceilings and work on the roof. Beyond 24-25, so one of the things that we're looking at doing is some new elective course offerings in areas such as the arts. So when I say that electives at the middle school are really mandated classes, but I would like to try to explore some of our areas. One such area would be general music. I'd like to try to break general music up into different classes that might allow students to get their general music credit, but not calling it general music. So being more specific, you can use drama, you could do dance. There's a lot of different avenues you can do so that we don't just have everybody going into general music. So we're gonna work with the music department to look at different classes that we could create that still fall under the title of a general music type of credit, but it's not just the same thing for every kid. We'd really like to diversify the experience for students that are not in band or chorus, but might have a passion somewhere else in that field. We're also looking at scheduling concepts to allow for students who are missing state mandated electives to have the opportunity to take these classes during the school day. What that is talking about is a student, if they're taking AIS math, AIS literacy, or in 8th grade, which is our biggest issue area, it's not just AIS math and AIS literacy, but it's kids that are taking band and chorus. It's students that are taking living environment lab. All those electives are pulling them from electives like health, home and careers, technology, ones that they're supposed to have. So we are going to be looking at some different ways to try to get these students who are missing some of their electives into some of those classes. One of the things we did this year, we visited Orville Todd Middle School in Spackenkill to gain some ideas and information on the Positivity Project in a middle school setting. So they welcomed us there. We actually get to see one of our former students in action up there. But they do a really nice job doing the Positivity Project. They gave us all their information, and we definitely think it's something that, could work here in Beacon as well. So it was nice of them to invite us up and get us started with looking at that. In terms of sixth grade, we were able to add a counselor last year, and then that counselor became a sixth grade counselor. So I just want to let you know that position has really been valued at Rombout Middle School. And one of the things that the sixth grade counselor also does is push into every sixth grade classroom each quarter. So each quarter, our sixth grade counselor will spend 2 to 3 days going into the sixth grade classrooms to do different sessions with the students. In quarter one, she focuses on transition to middle school. So every sixth grade class, maybe in social studies, is going to get a 45-minute lesson on transitioning to middle school. In quarter two, she works on goal setting, time management, peer conflict resolution. Quarter three, bullying and social media. In quarter four, she works on stress management, final exam preparation, because that's something that's new for the sixth graders. They're not used to taking finals. And then also getting prepared for what it means to go into seventh grade. So those are some of the things that she's been doing in addition to seeing students every single day. But I just want to let you know, we really value having a counselor dedicated to the sixth graders. She's positive, she works well with them, she's present constantly, and she is pushing into the classrooms to help assist with our newer students.
I just want to jump in for a sec. There's a lot of uncertainty, obviously, with the state budget, and governor starts the whole process tomorrow. But I did ask Brian and his team, being Mike and Amanda, but also teacher leaders in the building, to explore the idea of a 9-period day for next year. And so when he's talking about more options for students, it's, that's essentially that. So one of the things they're doing is they're looking at other schools. They're looking at possibilities within their, with what they can do, that would strengthen what they're doing. I think it would really, if we could pull it off, it would really help things, as Brian said, for students receiving AIS would have more options, which I think could be a real key driver for it. But it does have a price tag attached to it as well. So I think, we're going to kind of keep monitoring our budget and what's happening at the state level. And Brian's going to keep working on it with his team. And then I'm envisioning late February, early March. And, at this level, we provide an update to the board about where things stand with that. It'd be great to pull off. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. But I didn't want to be so vague that I'm not accusing Brian of being vague. I didn't want to come out and say this is exactly what we're going to try to do, because we haven't figured it all out yet, A, and B, we don't quite know what the governor's thinking and all that kind of stuff. So if we're able to do more with our budget this year, we really would want this to be a main emphasis, to try to increase programming essentially at the middle school across all the grades. I just wanted to add that. And Brian and his folks have been working on it for really a couple months now. But we want to, like I said, we want to kind of drill down a little bit more on what it may look like, but also wait and see a little bit about what's happening at that level. So I'll talk about this stuff later tonight, but this is one of those where we're going to kind of keep checking in with you all and get more detailed as we get a little bit later into the winter and early spring. But it's an area that I'm tentatively really excited about, us being able to do. So
The picture up here, last year, and we plan to have them back this year, we brought the therapy dogs in right around state testing time. And they were in the library for our lunch periods. And the student response, I think it's apparent in the picture, but we had 3 different, I believe there were 4 therapy dogs at one point in the building there. The students absolutely loved it. And just a really, really nice day for them to go from, they would go from lunch in different groups of anywhere from 5 to like 7 students. They'd come down to the library. They got 5 minutes, but just the questions they were asking to the adults that were there, and being able to see the dogs, it was really neat, and it's something that we want to do moving forward. Thank you. That picture right there is Tom Verano. Those are two of the portraits that he did during the Rombout Middle School assembly. One of them will be in our hallways at some point. Any questions?
So I just had, this is a little bit of my soapbox with all the principals, but I know that Saggy had talked about with the state testing, how we get the information out with released test questions and so on. How do the teachers, or do they have an opportunity to get together at any time to actually work on whether it's iReady results, comparing results of students within their team? Do they have that opportunity at all?
So they have department meetings each month that they can do that at. They don't have anything built into the day currently for that. Doesn't mean they can't on one of the PD days. And part of the expectation is that any of the released questions from this past testing sequence will be, I don't want to say completely covered, or that they'll be exposed to. It's easier to cover them all for math. A little more complicated to cover all the questions for ELA for obvious reasons. It could be a long passage or a writing, where math, you could do a do now question every day from a state test released question. So ELA might modify a little bit of how they're exposing it, where math will be covering all the released questions prior to the next exam cycle.
And I will say, now that Matt brought up the 9-period day, which I'm happy about, that having a 9-period day could allow teams to have a team time, which could then, if they had to lunch the same period, there's some things that they could do collaboratively, so that not only is it good for students, which I think it is great for students, but it also has some benefits within the staffing piece. I know there's a increase in FTEs, I'm sure, but it does have some benefits actually for PD built into the day, just because of have a time that they could be together. So
Absolutely.
just
Yes.
it's a big positive.
Yes, I agree.
Anybody else?
I maybe just want to ask a question about the academic data too. So if I'm reading the iReady right, it looks like there's some growth from beginning of the year to the end of the year, but in general, more than half of students aren't at grade level in reading or math. So am I reading that right? Do you have a sense of like why you think that is, and kind of what's your goal, or how are you all approaching that that challenge?
So some of the challenge, especially with iReady for ELA, can be lack of interest for the students to sit through and read the actual passages. We want everybody to take every benchmark we do with, all their effort. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything we're seeing with iReady is the student's best foot forward. Some of them will, just, they don't want to read the whole passage, or it's boring to them, so they'll just go to the questions, and they'll get flagged, and we'll restart them. But there are certainly other areas where if a student's taking it with fidelity, that we can look at that information, and the teachers can target that, especially in the AIS classrooms. Do I think our growth in ELA is enough? Absolutely not. I mean, I think we have a long way to go because we have to push those students that are 2 and 3 grade levels below up. I do think it's it can be a tough process. I think some of the students at the higher end tend to also stay there as they get a little bit older in iReady, because it becomes more and more challenging. So they do find that some of the growth on the high end is very difficult because of where some of them are at. But I think for our students who take it and they put their full effort into it, it really allows our classroom teachers to try to target them. I do feel like there's a fair portion of kids that don't take it at that level, which is unfortunate, and it's our job to keep motivating them to try to do that. So one of the things this year that we're hoping is going to be helpful is we've kind of backed off of the iReady as homework, feeling like maybe we were pushing it too much to them. And the hope there is that when they get to the benchmarking assessments 3 times, that we're not asking you to do it every day or every night for homework, but we really do need you to put your best foot forward when it's time for the benchmark so that we can see what you need help with in the classroom.
Can you go back to that slide, the one with the iReady on it? Is that based on, I'm so sorry, because
No, you're all right.
I came in the middle of
Did
that.
I'm going to go back to the ELA.
But so I understand what you're saying about the ELA and backing off from homework, but if the math score is struggling as well, what is that one?
We show what I was saying earlier is math showed more improvement from fall to spring than ELA did. But math is also a little, if they're working on it, there's not a big long passage they're
It's not
reading
reading
prior
intensive.
to, So for some students, they're going to put maybe a little more effort into that because it's not so long for them to maneuver through it.
When it was assigned as homework, it was part of their grade, presumably. And now it is not, correct?
Correct.
Which is demotivating in a way. I mean,
Are the numbers different from?
What's demotivating? What part?
well, if they don't feel like if students don't feel like they need to take it because it's part of their grade, wouldn't that
But
make
I
them
think
less
these are
motivated?
benchmarks. Does this reflect a benchmark, not the homework,
They're not
right?
supposed to be integrated into the grade at all.
Right.
Oh, so when they were doing it as part of their homework, it wasn't part of their grade. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Okay.
But just to be clear, the homework, if it was done as homework, it was like the practice part of iReady, right? Like the benchmark assessment thing is a different,
Okay,
right? It's like a clear test
right,
that has
okay.
a beginning and an end to it. The homework is sort of a self-paced, targeted to where the student is. And just to go a little bit further with that, I'm not an expert on middle schoolers, but like if they're getting it for homework every night, and then it's like, hey, and tomorrow you get to take the benchmarks, like the typical kid. Maybe not all of them are sort of like it. It's maybe not the most motivating thing to try to do well on. So that's a little bit of an issue
Right,
with the benchmark. So
Right.
we think like this change could help that a little
Okay.
bit.
When did that change happen? I guess
This year.
What I'm wondering is, when did we institute iReady because I think the whole reason for investing in it is that it would be a consistent assessment from elementary school to middle school, because before, I could be wrong, Anthony, I remember you always raising this issue that what we use to benchmark middle school is different. It was sort of an apples to oranges. So now we're in apples to apples. And how long, what was the first cohort? Have they gone through the school? Where are they in the school? Because I think we're making an assumption that what I'm hearing is that they do not like this tool. But we have the students don't like
I think as homework.
as homework.
As homework.
Right, but it was your question about the benchmarking.
He was just asking about benchmark.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I care less about the test. I just care, are the kids learning to read and
Right.
do
Right,
math?
that's
So
what,
that's
and are we
at the core
satisfied
of
with
it.
these scores? I think that's what you're asking, and why? Where
Right.
are we?
Yeah, I was just asking what's the assessment about where we are and where are we trying to go.
Right.
So what I'm
Right.
hearing is that there's a motivation effort, which y'all try something different this year. So that's great that we're trying something different. Excited to see how it goes. And I also heard you talk about AIS as one of the primary supports for kids who you recognize need help, and that was helpful to hear too.
And one of the things, again, I'm going to say the word if. Someone can count how many times, but if we're able to do a 9-period day next year, we're looking at ways to strengthen AIS with we're kind of reallocating staff. But Brian mentioned, and I think this is a pretty significant issue, is kids who are currently in AIS are missing something, right? So it's they're what's right. So it's like, you know, you're getting this extra help and you're missing.
Home and
You
careers.
could be missing different
technology,
classes.
art,
Right.
music.
Right, and so I don't, you know, that's not good for anybody, and I think that doesn't increase motivation for sure. I may not be
Right.
the expert in all of that, but that for sure is an issue. So we'd like to try to address that, because I do think trying to strengthen AIS, but also those kids having the full range of options that everyone else does, for the most part, helps.
Right.
You know, it's they're not having to miss out, and that's been kind of driving us crazy for the last few years. So
It's also important that the data we're using to evaluate how we're doing is sound. And so if I'm hearing that there's something flawed about that they don't like, that we're not getting accurate assessments of ELA scores because the kids are not finishing the assessment reading because they find it boring, then.
No, what I'm saying is some students are going to take it and they're going to put every bit of their full effort into it. There's other students, and it could be iReady, it could be a Regents exam, it could be the final exam. If that's, they're not motivated to take it, then their results may not be an accurate reflection of how they do.
But this is and Saggy, you probably say this way better than I do, but this is the importance of not just relying on one thing, right? So Brian talked about increasing the number of kids who take the state test. Because if we get that up to like 90% and not 60%, or, then that's like one measure. We have the iReady measure that's 3 times a year. We have, what teachers are seeing in the classroom. Like, I think that's the key. I don't want to talk about any of those because I see it as a parent. I'll be like, did you try on this one? Well, you look like you really tried on this. So I know it exists, but if we have multiple measures, which I think the effort to get more kids to take the test, the state test, all of our kids are doing this. We have what teachers are doing in the class. The AIS teachers are doing their own assessing. You know what I mean? It's like we have to look at it from you say it better than me, but like multiple measures.
In order particularly to plan around goals is that we need multiple data points. And because we have such low participation at the middle school level of the state assessment, we need something that is non-subjective. So even though teachers are doing their assessments, because they are doing midterms and they're doing finals and they're doing weekly assessments, this provides us with a more objective, because you always want something objective in there that we can use for our data point. The trends that we are seeing across middle school, which is not unique to Beacon, it's unique to middle school students overall, because I'm familiar with iReady from Washingtonville. So, is that in middle school, usually the benchmark seems to be pretty accurate. There's a dip in January, and then it kind of goes up at the end of the school year. So whatever it is, there seems to be a trend that around January when we do that assessment, there's more, the program actually sends an alert if students rush through it. It's called a red flag. So you can get a red one if you're trying to do it in 15 minutes because it shouldn't take 15 minutes to do it, and then you can get a yellow one, which means it's still you're kind of rushing. And what the teachers do is when there's a rush flag, the students have to start all over again. Because usually at this middle school level, it should take about 60 to 70 minutes to complete the assessment. At the elementary level, it's 30 to 45 minutes to complete the assessment. I monitor everything because I'm nosy that way. So I look at the reports after all the assessments to see what the average duration time is. There's definitely more flags in January. There's less at the end of the school year. And then we compare that obviously with our New York State assessment. State assessment has a lot more rigor than iReady. iReady does try to match the rigor of the state assessments because they do have a lot of those release questions get uploaded into the program. And one of the things that Curriculum Associates does, which is the company that owns iReady, is that this year there is something called iReady Pro, which is specific to middle school. They have gotten a lot of feedback from other school districts about these challenges in middle school and kids' engagement and their learning experiences on iReady. So they've actually done kind of like an overhaul of the program. It's starting this month where the kids' experiences should look more mature a little bit more sophisticated, so we're hoping that particularly the students that are in the AIS program, if they're engaging with it, it seems a lot more sophisticated for them and they won't think it's babyish. I think that's one of the issues, that maybe they're thinking some of the lessons are babyish.
And as far as that objective metric, I remember Mrs. Biordi brought up Dibbles. What was that? What's that called? That's
So
not. It's not a
Dibbles-
benchmarking. It's a kind of a
So
snapshot.
At the elementary level, there is another assessment called the Dibbles, and that is another universal screener that we look for ELA.
Right.
One of the reasons why we like the Dibbles because it tests things different from iReady.
Right.
It actually tests the domains that are very similar to the Foundations program. So it really lets us know how kids are doing in terms of lifting words off the page,
Right.
in terms of comprehend. There's more components to it.
And is that getting pushed up to, since sixth grade is last year of
Well,
elementary,
I'm
is
glad
that
you
getting pushed?
mentioned that Because we have been able to buy some licenses. They're only $2.50 for middle school. And we want to pilot Dibbles in the middle school this year voluntarily. So we want to see how it works out for some of the classes to see if it's worth extending the license to 8th grade.
Right.
Prior, Dibbles was only for really elementary, so it was not appropriate. And now it does go up to 8th grade. There is one particular
But it would be
component.
appropriate for sixth grade, because sixth grade is elementary.
Actually, they
right?
actually upgraded it where you can do it all the way up to 8th grade.
Okay.
There's a whole comprehension piece that goes along with it. But I would not purchase something like this without talking to teachers, without first piling it to see if it's even something worthwhile. Because I am looking for something else that
Right.
we can use as another data point, because we have a lot more data points at the elementary level than we
Right.
do at the secondary level.
And I think what she was saying is that you're not waiting for benchmarking, and it's not going up against their ability, but rather a snapshot of how well they're absorbing,
Yeah.
what's going on in the classroom. And is that for both ELA and math?
Yeah.
I know that, I know what Chris was asking about these slides, I think also is trying to look at, you know, I know AIS is important, but we can't get everybody into AIS, of course, right? It's almost impossible. I'm just wondering, I know that, I remember, I think it was from the curriculum committee, that we were working on vocabulary across the K-12 curriculum.
My district goal.
District goal. So, I'm wondering, is that something that is happening?
Yeah, so
I think some of the elementaries had spoken to it. I know Corey, I think, mentioned it. At
So
some of the classes I
vocabulary is
know.
also one of our goals. So
Okay.
Mrs. Pacino has been working with the iReady data for ELA to identify the students by name who are 2 or more grade levels below for vocabulary on the iReady assessment. And then those names are going to go to the teachers who have them, so that we're targeting those exact kids and making sure that they're paying attention to that data point. But that is part of where we were looking at. So vocabulary is obviously not the only thing in ELA, but that was an area that we are targeting currently in iReady with our current results. I will also tell you, the teachers in ELA and math know who is accurately taking the assessment, who's not, just if they're comparing how they do in their classroom to where they see them landing on the iReady scale. So they know when it's all said and done if 5 of their students just didn't feel like taking the test and are not below average readers. They also know the ones that are below average because they have them every day. So that obviously isn't data that's sitting up on the board right now, but a classroom teacher who's looking at their iReady data knows whether the students are accurately taking it or they're not accurately taking it based on how they perform in the classroom for them. And so they do target those students, but on an individual level, we are targeting vocabulary. And we're not going at every student, but we're looking at students that are 2 or more grade levels below. Those are the students that we're trying to identify by name, and we're trying to make sure that our teachers are aware of who they are in their classrooms. And Mrs. Pacino is working on different vocabulary strategies to give them for not just ELA. So if it's a social studies classroom, if it's a science classroom. So at our last faculty meeting, she did a mini PD about how to do breakout groups in the classroom. And so she's available to any of them if they want to work with her on vocabulary.
I could see that working really well in 6th grade 'Cause with the double block with ELA, there's like the teachers have a little bit more flexibility. They have, 2 periods
Yeah.
to do ELA that they can do some of that, like flexible grouping and stuff. And Kristen, you mentioned cohorts. I was just thinking that current 8th graders are started iReady in 5th grade
So there's some.
because the current 7th started in 4th, so we're in year 4.
And when you
The
try
middle
to,
school started a year later, but the current 8th graders did start it in 5th.
and you just have to make sure when you try to track those numbers that you're going a year later each time. So you don't want to compare 5th this year to how 5th did last year. 5th from last year is now 6th. So you want to see how those students are progressing as an individual learner as they're going up through the grade levels. So comparing like this year's 8th grade to last year's 8th grade, they're completely different kids. Want to make sure that when we're looking at how they're progressing from grade 5 through the end of 8th grade, that we're staying with the cohort as we're looking at their numbers, if
But
that
wouldn't
makes
we
sense.
see like, I guess I'm just, like, I feel like it's apples, like, and oranges, not to use that one again, but it's like, we're chopping it up into schools. What we're looking at is still a common educational system, so it's like, wasn't the part of the goal of this that we would get longitudinal data on how students were performing, because it's not just about, like, it's
Well,
about them as individuals, but
right.
then it's also
Right.
data for us to look at what, are we giving the right resources, and does the system need something? Is there some area for professional development that's
Right.
needed? Like, are we getting, because we do really only see it
Right.
this way, but.
I think that's something we'll work on pulling together. The data's there, and I know it's part of the reason the data is the driver for like the vocabulary focus, but we'll pull that together. Because my goal is that we tie this further to like board goals and the strategic planning, right?
Right,
So it's
yeah.
not just sort of
Exactly.
the school by school stuff too. So that we're working on that.
And that's what I was thinking the same thing, that I understand targeting students that may struggle with vocabulary. I get that. But I also think there's a benefit of increasing everybody's vocabulary.
Yeah.
So that if it's a grade thing or a school-wide approach or a district level approach, if I believe vocabulary was one of the focuses, if we do that across every classroom, however you do it, you could do it in phys ed too, I mean, do it in any classroom, that to me builds everybody's vocabulary, which therefore may increase iReady scores. That's kind of what
Right.
the thinking, I think, is, but
Right.
it's, sorry to
You're not
dominate here, but.
teaching the iReady test, you're not teaching the
Correct.
state test, you're not
Correct.
teaching to any of these things, but it's a tool to look
There
at.
is professional development. As a matter of fact, tomorrow at Roundabout, we have someone from the Mid-Hudson Regional Center who is coming, and he's going to be meeting with all the ELA and social studies. and
Perfect
teachers
segue.
on how to use AI to develop vocabulary lessons.
Perfect. It's good to hear.
Are there any more comments or questions on the presentation?
Yeah. So, when I was in middle school, I remember I also hated iReady, and back then, I'm sorry, but back then we didn't have iReady as homework. So, if you're saying that you're removing iReady as homework as a way to motivate kids to do better in the diagnostic, is there anything else that you guys have been working on with that? Other than removing it as homework?
Well, so when it was homework, we were getting a lot of students that we were getting a lot of kickback from the students, and that was what their focus was of it's too much. We also found that a lot of them had kind of figured out ways to go around the system, so they're just turning the passage on, but not paying attention to it, doing whatever else they're doing, and then they would let the time expire on it, so it looked like they did it.
Well, we've also, after 6th grade, there's a little bit less of the independent use of iReady.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
After 6th. Am I right in that?
After 6th, because 6th, some of
I
them
hear
will
about
use-
it in my house too. You're not the only student. Or I heard about it.
We were getting a lot from teachers and students when it was part of the homework where they were trying to do 45 minutes a week. And so that's why we had backed off. We haven't found an amazing thing yet. I mean, we could look for some rewards. We have discussed that kind of thing, but it's sometimes tough when you try to reward based on testing. So it's one of those things it's a little complicated when you try to get into that.
I think your perspective as a student is really interesting. Is there, looking back, is there anything that would have made you more motivated or excited to take
Honestly,
the benchmark?
I'm not sure. It was really just like sitting in a classroom for a week, staring at your computer, doing multiple, like, for example, like the ELA one, just reading multiple passages over and over and over and over again, and then having to answer questions about it. You really got tired of it after a while. And I was just wondering, like, if there was any way that they were like combating that.
Well, even in your answer, it sounds like stacking a lot of them together in a
Yeah.
single day or a single week might be extra exhausting. So maybe kind of spreading it out could at least lessen the burden a little bit.
Yeah.
My kids hated reading +2, Saggy, so just
I- When it's not the assessment, I will say as a parent, I noticed when a teacher paid a little bit more attention to it in terms of like, hey, like you didn't, like it kind of connected with at least one particular student I know more. And I say that they're not all paying attention to it, but sometimes like a teacher checked in on it more than others, and I think that mattered to kids too. But
I'm also surprised my kids will spout out some random facts, and I'll say, "Where did you learn that?" And they will say, "I already made us." read
yeah,
it."
oh, yeah.
It's not
Those reading
Something's
passages,
getting
there's a lot of info in them.
whether they want to or not.
All right, anything else?
I just want to say, Brian, thank you for pulling the the parent workshop together about like phone and internet safety. Like, you came up with that pretty quickly over the summer, and I appreciate you pulling that together for the district.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one more thing about the whole iReady thing. So when I started studying for the SAT, back when it was on paper and we had these huge passages to read, one of the test-taking strategies was read the questions first, go back to the passage, and learn how to break up the passage so it helps you answer the questions in a way where you're not getting too distracted, it's not taking too long. Is test-taking strategy something that gets talked about for iReady as well? Because I think that might encourage some students to not get as distracted or tired of a long passage quicker.
I would have to check with some of the ELA teachers particularly on that. I mean, I would imagine they are, but I don't want to speak for them, and I don't want to say I definitely know they're doing that.
Yeah.
I know when I taught math, there was always Regents class questions, and we were always gearing towards how to prepare for a question like this on the Regents. Middle school is a little bit different, but with iReady, you can use similar strategies in terms of just trying to get them to be at ease before reading in a massive paragraph without knowing why.
Because in middle school, there aren't a lot, like, you don't take an English Regents until you're in, like, a junior.
Yeah.
So they don't, like, to my memory, was a
Yeah.
while ago, there aren't any discussions about taking strategies in the English classes. And I think that if that's one of the main issues that we're seeing for ELA, maybe that could be a solution.
See, I know in social studies they'll definitely do it because of they're grilled towards the DBQs and preparing them for how to answer those.
Sarah, I know as a parent, I've seen
Yeah.
like the test taking strategies because I've gotten lectured on them by a student, not a teacher. But I've seen it in action, like in like the thinking about it and why they're approaching a question a certain way and stuff. So it may not be exactly like SAT test prep,
Yeah.
but it had some strategy behind it for sure.
Okay, so
they-
like just breaking it up is kind
Yeah,
of what
they've
I'm
also had to have conversations since we've gone computer-based with the state testing, just on how to handle those things and adapt to all that, both in ELA and math.
All right, well, thank you so much for
No
the
problem. Thank you.
presentation and the thorough response.
Because
So next up, we have comments from our student representatives. Do you want to start, Kiana?
Sorry, I wasn't really prepared.
No, it's okay.
I don't really have anything to comment on that I've really seen in the past week, or well, like a few weeks actually. But yeah,
You've already
got it
contributed
on
tonight,
iReady.
so it's fine.
I did.
Yeah.
That was my comment, honestly.
Okay. Sarah, what about you?
Nothing much. It's cool to see forum about a lot of the new things that are happening. I mean, like the new clubs and trips and stuff. So, yeah, I like that.
Nice. Okay, Nadine?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
It's fine. All right, well, moving on to agenda review, we do have a few changes. 11.05, policy 1230 on public comment at board meetings. We are pulling that one because it is not the right version. So we'll wait and have the updated one for the next meeting so that board members have a chance to review it. And then under 12.06F, to appoint teachers and teaching assistants for the Professional Development Committee. For number 11, the stipend amount was changed to $503.66. All right. Can I have a motion for the board to adjourn to executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual? The board will return in about 45 minutes.
So move.
Okay, move second.
Second.
Kristen, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0. We'll be back in 45 minutes. Matt,
vocabulary.
do you want to deliver, once everyone calms down, do you want to deliver your superintendent's
enjoying
report?
Was that on
Going for the
TV,
air
Mike?
class.
All right.
I just have 2 slides.
All right. We love it.
So I just wanted to put out there what our draft board calendar is. So I'm not going to read it all. It's fairly kind of similar to last year's. There are things on here that, like I mentioned, when at the end of Brian or during Brian's presentation about Roundabout, we are looking at like a different schedule for Roundabout, which would be a pretty big budget driver. So we're not going to wait till like instructional programs in April to talk about that. Like there'll be every meeting I'll be adding my 2 cents or more to the budget process. The other goal is that every week in the weekly update, like especially, I think there's going to be a lot of substantive things to share about the budget. I'll be trying to share budget things with the community as we go. And then just, the obvious things that are shaping the budget this year. The big one is tomorrow, the governor's presenting her budget. And I know a lot of people will be paying close attention. I think the really big thing tomorrow is to really look at what she took away from the foundation aid report. It's like, that's the big mystery. At the federal level, there's potential for changes there. Maybe not this year, but over the next few years, but we'll be keeping a really close eye on that. And then local level, obviously we're always going to be updating the community on where we feel like the tax levy, tax cap is going to be. So that all said, I talked about the survey. I'm going to do my community presentation about the survey right at the very end of January. I'll do a preview of that at the next board meeting. But I don't want to sum up 700 responses with 2 really quick things, but so much of it was about providing more supports for our students. And so much of it was about providing more enrichments and programming for our students. So we are really going to try this year to do more in those areas. So like I said, we're looking at Roundabout in terms of doing some changes to their schedule, if possible. We're also looking at our intervention model and trying to find ways to strengthen and support that in reading and in math for our students too. That's along with looking at the huge effort we've put into pre-K over the last few years, full day pre-K, and how much we've put into that. We want to analyze that. We're going to look at class sizes across the district during the next month. We're looking at everything. And so our hope is that we can get as much in as we can, but that is going to be an ongoing thing. I'll be updating, obviously the board, but also the community as we go. And that's all I have about the budget. I'm sure there'll be analysis of the governor's presentation tomorrow, and so I'll try to distill some of that to share with the community. It's a goal of mine to try to do more education on that front, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a bit at the next board meeting too. But other than that, that's the calendar. It's really typical from years past, and I don't really have anything else. So thank you if there's any questions.
Anybody? No? Okay, thank you.
Right.
All right, moving on to comments and committee reports. We'll start with Semra.
No comment.
Okay, Kristen?
We are going to have our audit committee on Wednesday, correct? 7 o'clock.
Okay,
7
good.
o'clock or
I think
6 o'clock?
it's 7. That's it,
7.
right?
Can I have a request. I was going to text everyone
Saw this
earlier
look and
today.
I was like, am I
Can we
wrong?
move it to
What's-
7:30?
On Wednesday?
Is that possible?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Here, right?
Yeah, we're going to do it in here because we're zooming in it's easier to do it in here.
Okay,
I'll send an email reminder to everybody too.
okay.
I will forget it.
Chris?
I just want to give a quick update about the PRAL meeting since Meredith isn't here tonight. We heard a little bit about the website that we're working over the next 6 months on redoing to be launched over the summer, so that was exciting. And then we also talked about this new idea of kind of a quarterly board communication to the community that would share more kind of what we are working at the board level to supplement. We talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago, I think, and grateful for, I think it was Anthony's suggestion to kind of link up with BOCES to make that a sustainable program. So we talked about doing it quarterly. We talked about drafting some topics that we might cover in the first one that we would try to share in February. And I think we're going to try to draft sort of what the outline and what the topics would be, and then get input from you all, and then get help from BOCES to put that together into a really succinct, easy to read quarterly communication that we could use both to let folks know what we're up to, but also do things like ask if there's anyone out there who might want to run for the board in May, and some other long-term kind of communication things. So excited about the progress there.
Right. And did we set a date for the next meeting? Was it February 10th? Was that our?
We did. It was like a really easy.
February 10th is facility.
No, it was February 3rd.
February
February 3rd
3rd.
at 7 is what I have.
Okay, great.
So that we can have the draft ready to go to the.
Yes, we've already got a document started with a bunch of bullet points, so I think the plan will be to share that around this week or next week, so that there's plenty of time for BOCES to take it and turn it into magic. Okay. Did you have anything else?
No, thanks.
Okay, great. Levon?
No comment.
Alrighty. Eric?
Just a reminder, we have Facilities Committee, February 10th at 6 o'clock. I think that's prior to a board meeting, I believe. And then I just wanted to say, I happened to see the new video today on the Capitol project. It was really cute, really well done, and I thought it was really, really nice to see.
Its stars are for,
I just
it's on
saw it,
Facebook and
2 hours
Instagram.
ago. Yeah, it was-
I'll send it in my email too.
Yeah, I'm trying.
What's
it on? Facebook and Instagram.
It's like,
And
it
e-
shows the
email.
improvements at the, what was it, just the elementary?
Just the elementary
But
this
the
time.
principals really got
Hammed
into
it
it,
out.
right? They were into it. It was pretty
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. That's it for me.
10 minutes a day.
No, thank you.
I'm going off.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
great.
Thanks.
Anthony?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So that leaves me. Do we want to talk now, Matt, about an alternate date for the retreat? If you have February dates to hand, since we're all together, or would it be easier for you to do the survey and send it to us? I mean, the poll and send it to us.
Hold on. Sorry,
While you're doing that, I will just mention, you all should have received the Board of Ed a Code of Ethics, a draft in your email. So this is something that, Meredith had been talking about for a while, and then we learned that we were required to have one. So this one was pulled from the NYSBA template and then other examples from other districts. And our attorney is going to look over it this week, although the language is basically pulled from stuff that he's already seen. But I want everybody to have a chance to look over it, and then we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting to vote on. So,
I realize some of the dates she gave me are on our board meetings, but I have February 18th, 19th, and the 20th. That's a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and a Thursday night. And then I have the Tuesday, the 25th as well of February.
I can't do Tuesdays. I could do the Wednesday or Thursday. That would be
The
fine.
19th or the 20th?
Yeah, the 19th or the 20th.
It would be at 6, right? Like 6 to 9?
Yes, that's the tentative time, but if somebody says, I really can't do it until 6:30, I mean, we could make it work, I think. What are everybody's
Either day.
availability?
I'm okay with either day.
Thursdays are no good for me. The 19th, I have a board meeting. But
Okay.
So the 20th.
Well, Thursdays are no good for
Oh,
him.
Thursdays are no good for. Okay.
Okay, so neither day works for you.
Tuesday works.
Right, I can't do Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna have to miss it.
Yeah. What about you?
I can do Wednesday or Thursday, that's fine.
Okay, what about you, Kristen?
I mean, I could have done any of them
Okay.
until somebody schedules me for something at work, but I can
I
block
also
out
have
times.
one other. I have Wednesday, February 5th. Sorry, I missed that one.
That's okay. That one is good for me. Does that not work for anyone?
I think that's okay.
Not good.
Why don't we say
Hold on.
February 5th then?
That's fine with me.
I can do the 5th.
So Wednesday, February 5th?
All right, I'm going to call her first thing tomorrow morning just to lock this in.
Strike while the iron is hot. Okay.
So Wednesday, February 5th, 6 to 9 board retreat.
Yes.
Okay, here.
Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me, Flora.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that is done. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
I have one, 12.06 F10.
12.06 F10. Okay. Anyone else? No? I'm going to pull 11.09, the school volunteers policy. I'm pulling that because, Matt, you're going to recommend, or I can recommend the adjusted language.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Do you want me to do that now?
In terms of like procedural rules, does it make sense for us to do it when we vote on that one separately?
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve 11.09 through 15.05 minus, 11.01 through 15.05 minus 11.09 and 12.06 F10?
So moved.
Moved by Levon, second.
Second.
Second by, here comes our questions. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes 8-0. All right, so then let's move on to 11.09.
So, Chris made a good point about the school volunteer policy, that there should be like a line in there just about a volunteer. I'm less eloquent the later in the night. Like a volunteer should be approved by school personnel. Like if someone can't just say, I'm volunteering, like that, it has like school personnel has to approve. So maybe, Flora, how about this? Like I add that sentence where it makes sense, and then we just do the first read again at the next meeting with that sentence added.
Yeah, okay, you want to
Okay.
just do that
So
instead?
it's just like one sentence we're adding just about like a volunteer. Like I think the concern was that that volunteers aren't just like inviting themselves in. So
Approve as amended with the sentence that you said. With
Right.
the intent of having an administrative.
So it would
Okay.
be added to the fourth paragraph. The proposal would be volunteers are approved at the discretion of the school principal,
okay,
which would be added to the fourth paragraph. So then I would say,
so it'd
can
still
I?
go for a second read. Okay,
Yeah.
Say approve as amended.
So can I have, do I need to do a motion to amend first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I get a motion to amend the policy?
So,
So, okay, second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed, passes 8-0. Okay, can I have a motion to approve 1109 as amended?
So moved.
so moved.
Oh, second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Passes 8-0. All right, moving on. 12.06 F10, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Yvonne, second by Semra. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay, passes 7-0. I think that was it. I meant to say thank you for the donation from Beacon Institute and Estuaries. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I'll move Yvonne, second. second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0. Good night.